Hi, this is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. This particular vlog is about a new way to use hypnotic phenomena. And it's also an argument against the use of hypnotic convincers in the way that it's traditionally used. Now, let's say that you have a client in your office, and let's say that during hypnosis you have suggested to the client that your hand is stuck to the wall, and the more you try to remove it, the more it sticks. Or your feet are stuck to the floor, and the more you try to remove them, the more they stick. Now, let's say that you have suggested this, and the client has an undeniable experience of this being their actual experience. And let's say that it's kind of a mind-blowing experience to them. Now, what does this mean? Because there's one thing to have an experience, but as we all know, it's really how you make sense of the experience, how you interpret the experience afterwards, that really, really makes a difference. And the truth is that there are multiple ways to interpret such an experience. And they're not all equally valid, they're not all equally useful, and they're not all equally true. So let's take a look at a typical client that comes into your office. If somebody comes into your office for anxiety issues, or they're depressed, or they're anxious, if you ask them why, or you ask them to tell you about it, you'll usually get some sort of story that says, I have these feelings because of those external factors. So I'm angry because my wife doesn't listen. Or my blood boils because people drive too slowly in traffic. Or I get anxious on the plane because I can't leave whenever I want. Or I get anxious in front of people because people have expectations of me. So essentially, I have these feelings, and they're directly caused by someone or something out there. Now, our job, for the most part, if you look at the schools of psychology that work, whether you look at neurolinguistic programming, or Albert Ellis's rational emotive behavior therapy system, or CBT, or William Glasser's choice theory, if you look at these schools of thought, one common denominator is that they help clients realize a psychological truth. And that is that we don't actually experience events and people in the world directly. We experience an inference, a interpretation, a projection of meaning. So our job, for the most part, is to help our clients either change what they think, like they often do in cognitive behavioral therapy for the most part, or to help them change how they think, which is often the case in neurolinguistic programming, or to even help them realize that they are thinking, which is often the most profound one. And this is an orientation typical in the three principles approach. So I'll give you an example of this. About 16 years ago, I had a client who came in claiming to have a fear of heights. And he worked as a phone technician, meaning that he would be one of those guys who climbed these poles all the way up to fix things. So having this fear of heights was not a good combination for him. He would either have to quit his job or get over the fear. So I had asked him to bring his climbing boots, because I had one of those poles outside of my first office. So in the office, I unsuccessfully tried to evoke the fear on numerous occasions and was unsuccessful. I did this directly, I did this indirectly. I even asked him, is it the heights, or is it you're thinking about the heights? And he just shot back, of course it's the heights. Hadn't it been for the heights, I wouldn't have had the fear. So I said to him, okay, grab your boots. We're going climbing. So I took him outside, and I demanded that he start climbing. Now, I could see his state change. So before he even started climbing, while he was still on the ground, I asked him, on a scale from 1 to 10, how scared are you? And if my memory serves me correctly, he said 4. So he started climbing, went all the way up, and he was at a 9. And then I said, you can come back down now. And After a few seconds, while he was still way up there, I said, "Where are you now?" And he said, "Well, I'm like a 2 or a 1 because I know that I'm going down." So when he came back down, I looked at him really, really intensely to make sure that I had his attention. And I said to him, "Dude, you were at a 4, standing on the ground, thinking about heights. You were at a 2 or a 1, way up there. How on earth could it be the heights?" And in that moment, he got it. He had one of those eureka moments where his internal experience just massively changed. And that was essentially the end of that particular phobia. Now, not all cases are as dramatic or as quick as this, but I think that when people change, they either change what they think, how they think, or, like in this case, they realize that they are in fact thinking, that they are in fact making the whole thing up. So I think in terms of hypnosis, our job, or the most useful way to use hypnotic phenomena, is to use it as tools to help people discover that thought-feeling connection, to help people see through psychological illusions and to have insights. Because think about it, if that person's feet are stuck to the floor and the meaning they make is that, oh shit, the hypnotist is in control of my mind, even if they make the change, you have just contributed to reinforcing the notion that their emotional responses really are a result of what other people do. It's just that some people have a lot of power, for example, hypnotists. I would argue that even if you help the person make the change they came for, you're reinforcing the type of thinking or the type of misunderstanding that really is at the source of a lot of the issues that people have. Or they might conclude that because they can't move their hand or their foot, that means that they will change, or it means that they're in hypnosis and they made the change as a result of being in a altered state. But do you really want to sell the idea that their change was a result of a particular state they were in? Because it's then very easy for a lot of people to end up thinking that if they want to make any change, they have to be in such an altered state. Or you could use the phenomena to help them discover that thought-feeling connection in a way that's not just on the intellectual level, but in a way where they really have a visceral, felt experience of it. So I'll give you one example of how you can do this. Let's say that you do a handstick. So you use suggestion and imagery, hypnosis per se, to stick their hand to the wall. Now, let's say that the person has an undeniable experience that they can't move their hand. You can use this. So, for example, if the client had reported feeling stuck in their life, you can then easily make the bridge that feeling of being stuck is the same feeling of being stuck when their hand is stuck. And it's actually generated by their own thinking. Meaning that when they think that when they think automatically that their hand is stuck, and when they then think that the more I try to remove it, the more it sticks, that's what's actually happening internally. This can lead to a big breakthrough. You can also use it to help them realize that the fact that they feel something with every inch of their body does not tell them anything about objective truth or whether what they're thinking has any connection to facts in the world. So if you get completely absorbed into the idea that you can't move your hand, it will feel completely real to you. But it only tells you that you've completely bought into your thinking. It's the only thing that it really tells you. So I've used this on several occasions to help people make the connection that even if they feel something really intensely, that never tells them anything about whether something's actually correct or objectively true in the real world. It just tells them about the intensity of their own thinking and that they've forgotten that it's a thought, so it seems like reality. If they have a partial response, meaning that they might struggle a bit and then they move their hand, or it feels stuck, but then they kind of remember that they can move it and they move it, you can point out that something can feel a particular way in a very convincing manner, but as soon as their thinking changes, their experience changes. And that's what happened when they went from not being able to move it to moving it. Their thinking changed, so their experience changed. And that this particular experience can remind them that no matter how deeply absorbed they are into a particular train of thought, there is always new thinking coming through. And when new thinking comes through, the experience will change. Now, let's say that they just move their hand. That when you ask them, they say, no, it never felt stuck, and I knew I could move it the entire time. Now, you can use that to help them realize that no matter what anyone else is saying, they don't really need to pay attention to it. That is one thing. But you can also use it to help them realize that, A, even if they believe in you and they pay you money to help them change, and they give you the authority of being, the hypnotist in the relationship, and even if they think along with your suggestions, they still have the choice to respond or not. And you can then help remind them or make the connection that they have this particular resource and choice in the issues or in the contexts where they are looking to make a change. So this is just one example of how you can use hypnotic phenomena to help people gain insights and see through psychological illusions. There are many other ways of doing it, but I think for the most part, this is a better way of using it than the other interpretations that I mentioned previously. Surgery might be an exception. If you're going to use hypnosis for an amputation or open heart surgery or something like that, which I've never been a part of, then I realized that you might want to use this as a test for a altered state that you call hypnosis. But that is a very different context. But for the most part, I think that what I've described here is a more intelligent and a more useful way of thinking about it. So I hope this was inspiring and that you'll do your own experiments. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at provocativehypnosis.com or comment on the YouTube channel or wherever you might find this on social media. So till next time, have a great day.